Hi everyone, it's me, David, author of the Dragon Rage series. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about the order of the books, so which ones you should look for first, and maybe a little bit about their content. This is for those who have either purchased Duskfell in the past, which was my original publication. It was a 500-page, just really thick novel, and I felt it was too big, so I took that and I split 3 smaller books, essentially. So I'm going to talk about that. And within the Duskfell collection, which is now what I call it, there were 2 books. There's book 1, As Days Darken, and book 2, The Awakening of Rhim. The first book, As Days Darken, is pretty much the exact same, but it's now in its own standalone print. So the first book, you can see book 1 there is As Days Darken. So if you're interested in purchasing just the first book and you want to see what kind of the series is like, this is the one that you want to get, is As Days Darken. Amazon, for whatever reason, doesn't really make it clear which book is which in terms of the order, even though they are all together tied as the Of Dragon Rage series. But yeah, this is it's essentially the same story. We've got the same content in terms of like you still have all the maps on the back. I've got a description of the calendar system and all the same appendix entries in the back and everything. I did split out the chapters a little bit. These are 5x8 instead of 6x9, so they're a little bit easier to hold, and that made the long, kind of 30 to 40 pages each. So I split chapters, and there you can kind of see an example of the table of contents there. But it's the exact same story. Not a whole lot has changed. Chapter 1 is the beautiful Lake Benalta, where you're introduced in 1866 to Edlin and his family. And the last chapter is actually the same title as it was in Duskfell, which is the Battle of Rhim. So that's where, well, I'm not going to ruin anything for you guys. If you're interested in more in what happens, you've got the synopsis on the back there that you can read, and it's available on the Amazon page for this book. So moving on to book 2, book Duskfell was called The Awakening of Rhim. That one I had 2 separate books because it was also pretty heavy. So book 2 is now Legends Unfold, and you can see it's labeled up there at the top. And this picks up right where As Days Darken left off. And the same thing happened where I took the chapters and split them out into chapters, partly because of the form factor, and also I wanted more than like 6 chapters in this book. So we have 11 chapters now in here. But it's the same thing. I added a little bit of a prologue, so you kind of can pick up where the story leaves off and kind of get an overall feel of what's going on in the world. But you get the exact same. It's the exact same appendix entries where you also have a nice map of the Gondolin there, and if you flip it around, you've got a map of Nyland, which kind of helps with navigating. But again, another little synopsis on the back, really cool cover design. And then where this one leaves off, that's where you get The Awakening of Rhim. And this is book 3. And same thing on the back, you kind of get a feel of what's going on, as well as a little bit of this is a shorter prologue of what's going on. I don't want to ruin anything from previously just by reading the prologue, but it's enough to get you going. And then the same 12 chapters in this book, where I had taken the previous chapters and split them out into smaller sub-chapters. But this one picks up where Edlin had made it to Arboran, and it also picks Helen and Gracie's storyline. It ends with the same chapter. Title is the one in Duskfell called The Fires of Dragon Rage. And you can see down at the bottom there is this final is the same as the last quote in the Duskfell book. And if you didn't notice, that is also that final quote there is actually the final words of King Valdor in his prophecy here. For one, the darkness is prepared for, ceasing to lay his claim ere the lands of green birth ceases to remain. That was also in the promo video that I put out a couple weeks ago. But that's to help kind of tie everything together, so that you can hopefully caught, or you will catch what's going on in terms of the prophecy and everything like that. But really, just to kind of reiterate, we've got book 1, book 2, and book 3 there, and it starts off with Days Darken, and then Legends Unfold, and then finally The Awakening of Rhim. So if you're looking for what order to purchase these in, or if you just want to read the first one to get your feet wet with it, see what kind of writing style it is, kind of what the story is about, definitely go with this one as Days Darken, since it is the first one in the storyline. And they're $6.99 a piece on it, a little bit cheaper than the $19.99 full Duskfell novel that I had originally published. So you get to save a little money if you want to try it out. But I would encourage you to keep on reading, because the story does get really good. And I have been working hard, writing and continuing. I'm about maybe a third of the way through the next novel and the next book in this series. So book on its way. I've also been working on a complementary book. It'll be a little bit shorter, also a little bit cheaper, but it's a side novel that you can or you don't read, but it will give a little bit of background on what happens. But more coming on that soon. So until then, farewell.